it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. And if we don't stop and celebrate those wins, we often will think, why am I doing this again?
Yes. Welcome to Smart Women Talking. We bring you thoughtful conversation about work, life, leadership, and everything in between. I'm Polly Meyer,
And I'm Barbara Zuliger.
and each week we're bringing you honest conversations, smart perspectives, and ideas that you can actually use. So, Barb, tell our guests what we're talking about today.
I'm so excited to be kicking off season 2 with this one because I think this is so important for many of our listeners. Most women know how to chase success. What you may not have been taught is how to own that success. You've mastered the chase, but have you mastered the win? In the season 2 opener, Polly and I are going to talk about how to get real about achieving success and the gap of actually experiencing it. Why driven women keep leapfrogging their own wins, why celebrating yourself still feels like bragging, and what it looks like to finally design a success that feels as good as it looks. No guests for this episode, just Polly and I having a real conversation with ideas that you can use today.
So, Barb, do you want to start us off with some questions?
Absolutely. Let's start out with like at a certain level of success, right? I think um, question shifts from how did I get here to why doesn't this feel the way I thought it would? Have you ever experienced that where it just everything seems to be happening so fast and I don't feel successful yet?
Yeah, I think this is very common actually. From my perspective, my experiences and the clients that I work with, it usually starts like this. We often start with the vision for what success looks like. And in our minds, it's this linear path, right? Point A to point B. But in
Exactly.
reality, it's more like 3 steps forward, 1 step back. And sometimes that step forward can take us right off a cliff that we did not even see on the horizon.
Yes.
So the journey itself towards success, it can be really frustrating at times. And partly it's because once we create that vision for what we want to achieve or who we want to become, we don't always think through the obstacles and the challenges that we are going to face on that journey to achieve that success. Or we don't think through those sacrifices that are going to have to be made, possibly to our health or to our relationships. And we discover that, oh, this is a big one for me. We discover that our emotional and our cognitive capacity gets tapped out way much quicker than what we were relying on to be there. So, I mean, are you just ever like brain dead at the end of your day where you can't take any more calls or anything
Yes.
because the capacity's not there? So when we achieve success, by the time we achieve it, Barb, we're not A to B, right? We're not fresh and shiny and new when we get there, but we're often battered and bruised in unexpected ways by the journey. And so once we feel like we've achieved that success, we've got it, we worked for it, we got it, we tend to look back and we wonder, was it worth it? So that's my
Yeah.
perspective. What's yours?
Well, I like the idea of the looking back because I think often we really can't appreciate our success without looking back, right? It's kind of like, the old connect the dots kind of thing. Got to go from A to B to C or one, two, three, whatever
Mhm.
that is, to see what the picture is going to be. And you only know it when you've completed the dots. And success is a little bit like that. In order to see where we've come from where we were, we got to be able to look back and appreciate those moves and not get caught up in the, oh, well, instead of going from 3 to 4, I went from 3 to 9, and then I had to circle back, and then I had to do 4, 5, and then I had to come and redo number 2, right? That's
It's
what the guts and
exhausting.
dots of success are a lot more like because the wins are small. If we can appreciate the small wins, right, and
Mhm.
acknowledge them, then, like you talked about the sacrifices and having the energy, I always think I can do more than I can really do. And I can do it faster than because I've thought about it. It's in my brain, right? I know what the steps are. But just because I know that here's how I can get my 2 miles in today doesn't mean I can do it any faster than what it takes to get it done,
And are
right?
you a rabbit hole girl? Like like I know what steps need to be done and I know the allotted time I have, but then I in my research or in my work, like an email will pop in, there is a link, and now I'm gone down a rabbit hole that takes me way off course as well, which makes success take longer to achieve. Are
It
you
does
that way
because
at all?
again, you've gone from 4, ooh, 10 looks
Yes.
nice. Let's go do 10, right? And I do the same thing. What I tend to do is go through these things. And if I'm talking about the same dot to dot analogy, I can get to 4. Oh, but then there's a 4.2 and there's a 4.3 and there's a 4.6. And the one project I was working on has now become 6. And I want to do
Mm.
them all at once because they all
Mm.
started from the same spark.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And we can't do them all at once and do any of them effectively. Whether that's a program or it's a podcast or it's a new way to entice our clients to reach their next levels. Right?
And
We have to have some focus on those things, and that all of that gets distracting, and then we sit here, and yet if somebody from the outside can look at it and say, "Look, you went from 1 to 4. Look how far you've come." And we're
yeah.
thinking, "Yes, but I wanna get to 40."
Yeah.
And I think that's where our topic about designing success becomes so important is being able to be aware of where we wanna go, but celebrating those wins along the way because as you said, it is hard to maintain the energy and the focus. I mean, I don't know any women that don't have something in addition to their business that they're responsible to. And if that's true, I guess I have met a couple that are all business and I work really hard to get them away from being all business. We need other
Mm.
things in our lives. And we need to have so this oozes into that topic about boundaries, which is not our topic for today. However, being able to celebrate those wins and give ourselves the opportunity to appreciate as we put each puzzle piece in along the way.
Well, well, let me ask you. So that ties into the next thing I wanted to talk about is we're taught how to pursue success, right? But not
Yes.
how to experience it. So from your perspective, what does it actually look like to experience success in real time, not just chase that next version of it?
It has to be really intentional because I don't know. You and I are were raised probably by similar parents in the same generations, right? And I remember my mother, and this is a little off topic as well, but I remember my mom telling me they didn't really praise us a whole lot because they
Mm.
never wanted us to feel like we were we had made it, right? They wanted us to keep striving. And she regretted that a little bit because she felt like maybe that would have been good for all of us to have felt a little more of those wins. But I think having been raised that way, you don't stop and celebrate that win. You keep moving on. And I think if we can, I kind of look at it, one of the easiest ways when I'm talking about this topic is just the ABCs, right? Acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you have achieved this. Acknowledge that we are in season 2 of Smart Women Talking. Acknowledge, that we have accomplished something, even if it's not the whole picture. Um, and then blast it out. One thing I find is many of us don't talk about our wins, right? It's bragging, or it's really not that big a win because somebody else has gone further, or
Mm.
somebody else did it faster, or somebody else is talking more about it, even though I just did this, right? So acknowledge it, blast it out, because when we share it with others, not only do we get to claim that feeling of success, but others get to feel, oh, well, if Barbara can do it, Polly can do it, I can do it,
Hmm.
right?
And I do want to come back to that quote unquote bragging piece too later in the
Right.
podcast because it's really an important topic. I see it come up with my clients a lot. For myself, on the Strengths Finder assessment, one of my top strengths is achiever. So
Hmm.
for someone like me, once something has been achieved, we just move right on to the next thing. We barely acknowledge it, right? No
Yes.
matter how big or how small that achievement was for us. But for now, I am a recovering type A personality. I'm becoming more intentional about sharing my success with others. So I am currently in the process of becoming my own cheerleader, right?
I love
I'm
that.
intentionally calling my friends. I'm calling those people who care about me. I'm also writing about them in my journal, right? Because just documenting the process, the challenges you experienced along the way, how you overcame them, has, in a way, strengthened me. Here's why, because documenting your successes and not just blowing past them like most people do, uh, it gives you a stronger foundation to stand on, which is really needed when you are walking into those moments of consequence because it keeps the imposter syndrome from seeping in.
Absolutely.
So, how does it keep the imposter syndrome from seeping in? Because when you are clear on your successes, what you've overcome, no matter how small, the challenges that you faced, now, because you've documented them, you've internalized them, you have a deeper understanding of what you bring to the table, right? And that goes a long way in building your resilience, goes a long way in building your confidence.
It does.
And
And that resilience is a big piece of it. When we started our businesses, when you start something new, most people are like, okay, I'm all in and I know I'm going to be working a lot of hours and I'm going to dive deep. But for most of us, whether it's our career or our business, or maybe you're a leader in the community, or you're in a uh, in politics, or you're anything that you are striving for, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. And if we don't stop and celebrate those wins, we often will think, why am I doing this again?
yes,
And,
yes.
many times I know for me in my career, if I had known back in 2008 how long it was going to take and how much work it was going to take for me to reach the levels that I wanted to be at, I'm not sure I would have done it.
Hmm.
And that would have been a mistake
So
because I
maybe
love
it's
what I
best
do.
not to know, right?
It's
It,
sometimes it, and that's why we have to stop and celebrate those wins, because if we're waiting for that big win, it may not feel like the big win when you get there. If you're
right.
not used to celebrating those wins along the way, we use those wins to lift us up to that next level or that next step or that next adventure. And that's okay as long as we stop and appreciate it before we do that leapfrog move. Don't ignore
Mhm.
what you've already achieved, because claiming it, as you say, through journaling, claiming it through meetings with others, and even like starting out meetings. What are you celebrating today?
Hmm.
What's your win since the last time we talked? Whether that's with your team, or whether it's with, a mastermind, or it's with just, people that other women especially, because we are really good at lifting each other up most of the time, but not as good about celebrating ourselves.
There's this quiet pressure that women carry. There's this feeling that they should already be further ahead.
Yes.
And where do you think that comes from? Like, not only where do you think it comes from, but how does it shape the way that they see their own successes? What are your thoughts on that?
Where does it come from? The first thing that comes to mind is it comes from the fact that we're visionaries,
Yes.
right? If we are leaders in whatever realm that may be in, if we are somebody who's got big dreams, that means we're visionaries. We can see what that looks like. And if we can see it, why aren't I there? Am I there yet, mom? Are we there yet, mom, from the back
Mhm.
seat, right? We know what it's going to look like when we get there, or we know what we want it to look like and feel like, but we always think it's going to happen faster than it really does. So I think that that is a piece of feeling like we should be further along. And I think also sometimes we get in our own way. I don't know if you've ever experienced that,
Oh,
where
maybe once or twice.
once or twice, where we think we have this inner battle going on sometimes of, oh, this is what I want to do. Oh, but can you really do that? Well, I don't know. But I really want to do this. I
Mm,
have fallen into patterns at times of being an 80%er. I'll get 80% of a project ready to go or 80% of a new program. And then I'll look at it and say, I don't know if I like that. And then I don't do it. But it comes back to me frequently, a year later, 2 years later. And I'm thinking, all right, if this is still with me, it must have value. And I want to get back to it. And then I get it out there and it works well. And well, crap, why did I waste that 2 years of not getting this finished to do it? At that point, it really doesn't matter why. Just keep moving forward with it, right? But I think it's the fact that we are visionaries. So because we can see it, we want to get there. And sometimes we create our own blocks.
mm. You know, I,
Oh,
I have another point of view because you've brought up visionary a couple times.
uh-huh.
And there was a time when I was dirt poor. I mean, dirt poor. And I would set my alarm clock to wake me up in the middle of the night when the full moon, the big full moon in the summertime would be at its greatest height. And I would go outside and I would stand outside and I would, arms raised, profess to the universe my vision, right? And one of those was I wanted to make 100 grand in a single year. And not just that, I want to know that I have the conviction to do it. Well, the first year that I made 100 grand, I was quite smitten with myself because I did it. But Barb, it didn't last long, right? Because I
Yes.
quickly started thinking of how other coaches that I'm watching online, well, heck, they're making a lot more than me doing the very
Yeah.
same thing. So my mindset and my vision shifted to I need to find ways to provide more value, more assets, putting in more hours to get further ahead so that my success is aligned with my peers. Barb, it's a vicious cycle because
The
eventually
comparison.
you just burn yourself out.
Yeah.
So I would say that social media is a very big part of why women feel like they're behind, right? We
Yes.
see what other people are doing, what they're putting out there. But on social media, this hits me. We are only seeing what they want us to see, right?
That's
It's
very
called,
true. Yeah.
it's called marketing for a reason, but it's done so well that it leaves us ending up feeling like our success is not enough. So, as women, we continue to strive. That's what I'm thinking.
And I think that comparison piece is a really big one. And we can find benefits in that, right? Well, if they can do it, so can I. Well, if there's a market for this, you know, or if there is somebody else just got a position of promotion and they're now the CEO of whatever company, but that's where I want to be. So how do I get there?
Mhm.
Um, if somebody else can do it, so can we,
Mhm.
right? But I do think social media could be used in a more supportive way. But who wants to get out there and say, hey, I tried this and it failed?
Mhm.
But that's a part of winning too.
It is. It's also part of being real,
Yes.
right? And we can relate to being real. You can
So
feel it.
when we're talking about designing success, um, what are we really asking someone to take ownership of and why is that so much harder than it sounds? Like, how do we
Taking
design success? We've talked a lot about celebrating it, right? How do we get
Mhm.
to that point where we can appreciate it and we're continuing to design it?
I find that, and this is hard to do sometimes, but pausing taking time to pause, blocking it on your calendar, pausing to recognize where they are, right? This pausing comes in the form of deep listening, processing out loud with a coach or a therapist or a best friend, journaling, learning from assessments, right? Because when you pause, it gives you a greater awareness. You approach situations differently with this not only a greater awareness, but oftentimes a greater aliveness, with more compassion, with more conviction, with more mission. When we pause in this way, we find that we're no longer winging it as we approach situations, because in the pause with this greater awareness, what happens is we start to shed what no longer works for us, right? The old truths that were holding us back, the old ways of being. So I find that the greatest shifts, it does happen with a coach. It does happen with a therapist or through journaling, because it all brings a greater awareness. It brings illumination to your blind spots. And this gives you the courage to shift. What are your thoughts?
One of the things you said really resonated with me there. We've been talking about claiming our success and really feeling it and really, you know, like putting it in our backpack and taking it with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you said something about the pause also helps us let go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is really important, we've accomplished this piece of it. Now, how do we use this? How do we use this for what we want next? And how do we just be sometimes, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know there's been a couple of years where over the last few, where I've had on my bulletin board in front of me the word striving.
Mm.
And the purpose of it is to remind myself to stop striving,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we can't be striving 24/7. We're not effective. When we feel like at least for me, when I feel like I'm striving 24/7, what I'm really doing is creating my own anxiety. And when I can tell myself, I'm not striving, I'm doing the things I love to do, I'm doing what I feel called to do, and I'm doing what I think serves the people I'm here to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do I do that? Because one of the other things you mentioned was winging it. Well, you and I definitely have that um, yin and yang on that piece. I like to
Yes,
wing
we
things.
do.
Polly is very professional and very organized in how she does things. And we balance each other off a little bit. Um, and I think that that is a benefit too, to be around people that do things a little different than you do, not necessarily so you change, but so you can appreciate what the balance is there.
Mm-hmm.
So, that pause, and that pause might be taking a Friday off. That pause might be a vacation. That pause might be a glass of wine on the porch.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that pause is, but being intentional about it and saying, this was a good week. This was
Mm-hmm.
a good day. We had good movement in that project. And just acknowledging that helps us to get that energy and the focus to keep moving forward. And even when things don't go well, we learn from that, right? And we want to
Mm-hmm.
pull that into our time of designing our success, because we don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again. We want to make new ones,
Right. Right.
right?
And my pausing and with my clients, it's very intentional. So
Hmm.
we have rituals around the pause where we have a specific day and a specific time that we do our rituals. Let's say Thursday night at 7:30. Uh, we have a specific place that we do our pausing. We have a specific journal with prompts that are there. We light a candle. We turn on a playlist. And that time is just ours. That half hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour is just ours to really dive deep into where we are, where we're going, what is important right now, What is being neglected that I need to shine more light on? What is taking my energy? Where do I need energy? So it's very intentional. But I really do like your idea of a glass of wine on a porch. Uh, Anytime you have that time alone or time to process with somebody else, I think is
Right.
equally important.
I think the pauses, and it's for many women, at different phases in our lives, it can be really hard to find that time. It isn't going to just show up
Right?
because as we started out today's conversation, i- we're good at chasing success.
Mhm.
Many of us, especially our listeners, right? Many are very accomplished people who have done important things in their lives and are continuing to add more to, their buckets of success, right? What they're winning in and what they're learning and what they're accomplishing. Um, and we need to be intentional about stopping to appreciate that so that we can keep moving forward with that, whether that pause is a couple of minutes because there's so many other things going on, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when you and I were raising kids, and now we get to have that added benefit of spending time with those parts of our family, we're always giving. That's what I find for most women, and whether we're doing that through our careers and our what we're striving for and what we're trying to accomplish from that perspective. As soon as we take time away from that, we often immediately will be caught up in serving someone else,
Mhm.
whether that's through our communities or through our families or through our connections. And that's not bad. That's a good thing, right? That's how we're changing the world.
Well,
We
to your
want
point, success in one area of your life means that you're going to be taking away your time and your energy and your focus from another
true,
area of your life. And over time, if it goes unchecked, you're trying to do everything. It's going to lead to imbalance. It's going to lead to burnout.
right?
So I would say that taking ownership means regularly assessing all of those areas of your life, right? Your health, your relationships, your mental and emotional needs, making sure that you have experiences built in to make life worthwhile, right? That you're being responsible with your finances and congruent with your spiritual beliefs. That, Barb, is a lot to carry for anybody.
It is,
And
and that is the thing too. One of the tools I use is the Wheel of Life, and
Mhm,
I honestly don't remember right now who this comes from. It was not my creation. It comes from one of these really brilliant people like Stephen Covey or something like that.
mhm,
And I do have that available if anybody is interested in a copy of the Wheel of Life. It's a simple worksheet where there are 10 different aspects on there. A lot of them you just listed out, right? And we
mhm.
give ourselves a score of 1 to 10 on that of how strong do we feel about how good do we feel about where we're at in this quadrant of the wheel right now? We can't be 100% addressing all 10 aspects at any
Right.
one time. So even if something is, say, it's a 3 or it's a 4 out of 10, maybe it's not a priority right now, right? And being aware of that and allowing yourself to say, that isn't a priority for me right now because this needs to be. Right? So maybe
Mhm,
it's the aspect of physical fitness. Maybe it's I'm going for walks every day, but I'm not meeting with my trainer and I'm not lifting weights and I'm not and I'm not and I'm not. Right? But right now, in the next 90 days or next year, my time has to be focused over here. So I will keep this at a point of a 3 or a 4, but it's not going to be a 10 right now. And allowing that to be real for you because we
mhm.
can't win at everything on that circle all at one time. It's a win to get that balance, that harmony going of, and there are times when our careers are going to take a back seat for a little bit. Okay, this is kind of on auto drive for a little bit. And yeah, I need to keep my foot on the pedal and be paying attention, but I don't need to be going 100 miles an hour during this phase, whether it's
Mhm,
months or a year or whatever it is. So we find that balance. And just as you said, being aware of all the other aspects of what make us a full, happy person. Because really, if you're career is going crazy or your business is growing leaps and bounds, but you're not happy. Is that really success?
Right. Good point.
Yeah. So how do we find that? So, Polly, if somebody's listening to us, and I know they're out there, right? Wave to us. I know you're out there. Um, Somebody finishes listening to this episode and they're thinking, man, that really resonated with me. What is one move you would suggest that this successful woman take forward to help her appreciate the success she's achieving?
Start journaling. That is my number one suggestion. Either with a pen and a notebook or open up a notes app and start talking into it while you are taking a walk.
Yes.
It's even better. You're accomplishing two things at once. The process of writing and
Yes.
thinking out loud uninterrupted, it is going to reveal some very deep insights and aha moments for you. And in fact, if you journal, I would say have two journals. Have a junk journal to process all of those messy thoughts, and
Yeah.
then have another journal for the insights that came out of it,
Oh, I
right?
like that.
Yeah, that is my number one idea of what you should take away from this. Barb, what's yours?
This just came to me, but I do think we've talked about it in other ways. But let's say find a bragging partner.
Hmm.
Who's your person that you can really sit down and be honest about what's really going on for you? Hey, here's my wins. Here's the things that suck to get here, but here's my wins. You got to be able to talk about both. We look at social media, as we said, where we only see the wins, right? And when we're talking with our friends or our family, maybe we're only talking about the challenges. So who's your person or your group of people
Mm.
where you can have that conversation and say, you know what, this felt really good this week when I got this done. I didn't want to do it. I put it off. That was a win for me. I got that done. It's not going to show up, in the world's not coming to see it, but it's a win and I need to celebrate it. So who's your bragging person that you could talk with about that?
I love that.
Right. So it's
Absolutely.
kind of like the journal, but a
Yeah.
person you can actually have that give and take with.
Okay, Barb. So this wraps our first episode of season 2 of Smart Women Talking. To our listeners, thank you so much for spending time with us today. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and join us next time for another episode of Smart Women Talking.